Hey, man.
What's going on, dude?
Yeah, not a whole lot. Good to be back on the mic again.
Yeah.
Fun story last time talking about the moped incident. I did notice we didn't really lead up to what this episode was going to be
No,
about.
we didn't. We kind of left it wide open.
We did. What'd you have in mind today?
Which is not on purpose. We just weren't sure what we were going to do.
It's true.
So, I see you got your readers there.
I do. You know, little glasses.
Mine are somewhere upstairs.
Not that, I don't want to read, but there's the look I've got. Little granddad look. Hey, I know we're still close to wrapping up the holidays. Did I tell you what one of my presents was?
No.
I'm going to be a granddad again.
Hey.
I think that news
I did see that. Read.
News is out there. Yeah. I was going to say, I think by now everyone knows. I think it's public knowledge, but I was going to say, I won't tell you which one of my kids it is.
Hey, sorry.
But it's not the one that already has kids.
But it is, it was posted.
Yes. No, it's common knowledge.
posted
Breaking news, man.
He posted
there.
it.
So,
Once it's Facebook official.
This will be
it's official.
Be number 4. So I think I'm officially granddad, which to me means I should not have to work. My day should consist of fishing and napping. But that is
I think that's a great plan.
Not where I'm at in life at the moment.
Right.
Gonna get there.
So
but
this episode,
yes,
kind of along the same lines as the moped, we are going to talk about bikes and ramps and
good times,
assorted things like that. Because having a bike in the 80s, when you got your bike, it was a ticket to freedom. There was a life beyond
your street, really.
Yeah, your street or where you were just comfortable walking.
Yes. That's going to be a fantastic discussion. I look forward to it.
Yeah. So, there's these memes that you see now, these kids in the 80s. I'd like to drop my kid off in 1985. If I find that meme, I'll put it right here.
See how long
how long they would last. Yeah. Yep. And it's a kid jumping over other kids or something like that on a bike. So I'll need to remember to find that.
You just didn't want to be that last kid in line.
Nope.
You
wanted to be the first
right up under
couple
the
of
ramp.
three to the ramp, because you'll know there's almost no way that something's going to happen. But you get further and further out, it's dangerous. So anyway, that's a real thing, and that's what we're talking about. All right,
Bikes
stay
and
tuned.
Ramps.
Intro.
Hey, man.
All right, here we go.
Bikes and ramps.
Bikes and ramps.
Played a huge part of childhood.
I would dare say there are, I would really say any, but especially coming from the male Gen-Xers, I dare say that there would be very many kids, Gen X kids, that don't have core memories of riding their bikes, doing something.
I would agree with that 100%. And I think that goes for both sexes, male and female. I mean, there were some pretty awesome bikes all the way around, and they changed. We it was an interesting time because you went from the 70s banana seats and the little streamers hanging off to we're putting playing cards in our spokes, and just handlebars became very important.
The motorcycle sound.
Yeah, I mean it changed a lot. You had bikes with speeds come into play, and I think by the time we got into like high school and things, road bikes and mountain bikes started to become more popular. But
the 10 speed was you either had just a regular street bike with the fenders, which we made fun of if you had fenders.
You had to take all that off.
You had to take all that off. If your bike came with fenders, you had to take them off.
And usually you had to change your handlebar grips too.
Oh.
There were you had to have some special ones for that.
Yeah, the ones that came on your bike you didn't want those because It was kind of like people do with their cars now.
I was going to say, I mean, there were better rims. There were, certain tires you wanted to get with the whatever the knob count was, or I mean, it really.
All of those, the names of all those things just popped into my head as you were talking about those. So I'll drop some of those, some of those names that pictures. I remember.
And some people will see those. I know social media. Those pop up on Gen X and 80s pages and things like that. Now it's so interesting to really think about how far back the 80s were now. So. And then when you put it in relation to during the 80s growing up, if you go back that same amount of time, I mean, you're talking about just a different world. And
well, you're in the 40s. You're in the middle of World War II.
Yeah. It blows my mind that we're, 40 years past that period of time. But
right, because 40 years ago to me is like 1960.
Still, yeah, it is.
But...
sometimes 1940. I mean, depending on what mind frame. I mean,
not the case, but
I mean, it was. The time period that we keep referring to, which is typically the mid 80s, 40 years ago is in the mid 1940s. So you're right.
Right, which would be right at the tail end of World War II. So for us, hearing somebody talk, for us as kids, to hear somebody talk about their growing up 40 years prior would be like. That's the end of World War II. That was forever ago.
Yes.
We realize that, and our bodies realize that as well.
Body says that every day. Speaks in a little voice.
I'm working on that.
But I feel like that our recollection of 40 years ago is a little bit kinder than what we experienced because I remember some of those conversations, and they were not always nice, definitely not politically correct from what I recall. So
no,
you had to have thick skin to even listen to some of that stuff. But different time, different world.
Yes. And they had a different job to do.
They did. And I think
they were trying to save the planet.
Absolutely.
So.
And they did. They gave us the opportunity to sit here 40 years later and talk about bikes and ramps.
Right.
Which was our freedom to the world. And we were talking a little bit before we started the episode. And one thing I wanted to bring up was, where you're sitting now, especially if you have children, think about that child being 5 miles away from you. No phone, no little geo marker, no tracking device, no way to know exactly who
they don't have
with.
Some special watch that shows you their location. They are 5 miles away from you with no way to know where they are or get in touch with them. Or knowing all or any, well, usually you at least knew one person that was with you.
Yes.
So there were maybe quite a few other people with you that the parents didn't even know or didn't know about. Not on purpose. You just kind of pick people up along the way.
Yeah. You never know who you're
Hey, where are you going?
From. Who else is out that day?
Right.
And they were typically same age group.
Yeah.
I think by that time, we knew the basics of stranger danger and candy from people in vans and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm feeling like if I'm on my bike and somebody's running after me, I can outrun them.
Definitely.
That's what I'm thinking.
Super fast.
Right.
But bikes and ramps. Bikes gave us that freedom, and that was the freedom to, at the time, feel like I could go anywhere.
Yeah.
And it really, the concept of bike lanes did not exist. So if you rode...
There were rarely sidewalks.
I agree. I agree with that. Rarely side. So yes, we were just riding down the road. I remember at one point, it may have been a little bit older because it was with your brother, but I recall your brother and I riding our bicycles down Briley Parkway. Did you ever know that?
I don't know that.
He'll have to confirm. I'm 100% sure it was with him. If it wasn't with him, then I did it alone because I know I've done it, but I'm pretty sure it was with him.
Briley Parkway now, and even then, but now is a major thoroughfare.
It's an interstate.
Right, kind of around Nashville. It's, I think, technically Highway 155. So if you feel like looking that up on your Google Maps, Briley Parkway, Highway 155. It is now it's oftentimes in several places it's a 4-lane.
Yes.
Now
This
it's just
still,
two
it was
lanes.
2 lanes then. So this was before.
But still, that was the way to get
the
to
major
Opryland.
expansion, which was where I recall we were
Going. Now, my brother for several years was very into biking. He got a road bike and had, the aero bars and all, and had all the stuff and the helmet and the shoes that clipped into the pedals. Very nice setup.
Yes.
And he biked a lot and would always, brag about the size of his quads.
Oh, he did. He had tree trunks for a while there,
man.
I recall. And I believe one of his first bikes, I'm pretty sure I bought off of him and became one of my first nicer bikes as he upgraded. It's like a yellow something. Not sure.
I don't know. I will have to.
Yeah.
Philip?
But yeah, so biking, huge. It was our way around. It, I mean, wow, just
now we weren't
adventures
always venturing off miles from home.
No, that's where the ramps come into play.
The majority of the time, we were just riding around our neighborhood. And we mentioned in last episode, our street was not a through street. It was not a cut through. There was no way to get from our street to somewhere else. So there was not near as much car traffic on our street as some others.
No. Occasionally you would have someone, you could almost tell if someone
didn't live there,
shouldn't be there. And I would say probably the most dangerous aspect was our street had a curve, and there would occasionally be people that would come around that curve too fast.
And that curve was right at your house.
And that curve was right at my house. It was right at the circle gathering spot. And so oftentimes we would be in and around that area. That would be where we would set up. We've set up ramps there. So
we did all kinds of things in the circle.
We've talked about that being our ball field. It really was a multi-purpose, kind of common area. And I do remember specifically the amount of speed you could get coming down the street headed towards the circle.
Right. Because
made it a really great spot.
Gently sloped downhill.
Yes.
It was a very gentle downhill slope, but downhill nonetheless. So you could really get some speed.
And it was interesting too because it was the road also kind of made a circle, a bit of a cul-de-sac, I guess, but not really because it had the circle.
Right.
So it truly made a circle, but because of the traffic patterns, it also created this little triangular patch of gravel. There was always gravel there. So,
coming
through and seeing how far we could skid on our bikes, it was great because you'd hit a piece of that gravel and you
could skid forever.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And then you could take the gravel and kind of smooth it back over, and we would compare just stuff like who could skid the longest. I mean, it was just we came up with games and things to do because that's what we had.
Yeah, that's what we had at our exposure, and we did it. I don't know if that's the right word, but doesn't make sense to me now that I said it. So edit that out. I don't think we're at that level yet.
I think I can do that,
but it's all good. But no, I mean, so as I think about it, it's like you've got this perfect little ground of being a multi-use area. I know we set up a couple of ramps there where people would just bring out different materials from their yards.
You just found stuff. We would have like sheets of plywood, or here's a 2x6 or a 2x10 that's 4 feet long. Let's put something under it. Let's put 2 cinder blocks under it and
cinder blocks. We put it on
tires.
We do tires. We talked about in the previous story about putting it on leaning up against a wagon with wheels, which got to add a little spice to it. That was a horrible idea. But yeah, I mean, anything that would give us that elevation to be able to jump. And then, jumping was one thing. Everybody, for the most part, could jump.
Yeah.
It was a landing. That's what got everybody.
Yeah.
And as long as you could get off the ground, it's like, oh, that's awesome. But with that landing part, and landing on flat ground and going on.
No
that's one
suspension.
thing.
Nobody had shocks on their bike or any of that kind of stuff. That's all the bikes now.
I wonder if knee replacements have gone up in recent years and will continue to increase.
Ooh, maybe that's something we should invest in. Companies that.
There we go. There's
See, I think
plan.
as the Gen Z, so when we're retired and Gen Z starts getting older,
yes,
I'm gonna maybe reallocate some of my investments for hip replacements because of the way that they walk with these sagging pants. And hearing aids because
thumbs.
They just play their music so loud in their
now you're sounding old.
In their earbuds. Yeah, sounding old.
I figured at some point thumbs are going to give out from all the texting and everything. They're going to cramp up. And the neck, looking down all the time, right?
Yeah.
Makes it hard to look up. So there's going to be some kind of medical issue there.
There is money to be made in the misfortune of others. Don't take that the wrong way. You know what I mean.
Yeah, it happens. But so you had a good story about a ramp in the circle.
A ramp and a landing ramp. So
yeah. The landing ramp that's a new twist too, right?
That's a new twist.
The takeoff ramp's one thing, but the landing ramp,
because
different
after a while you kind of get bored with ramps that are only so tall. And you're like, I can go bigger, but I just can't take the impact of, because I mean there were many times that I landed and feet came off the pedals.
Oh yes.
Which can cause its own injury because then you come off the seat and then you hit that
handlebars turn
or you hit that crossbar.
Then you're on the ground.
And
the crossbar pad became popular.
Crossbar
in the
pad
80s.
And the neck pad.
It did nothing.
Oh, yes. The crossbar pad was a lot of times just for looks.
That was a false sense of security because I can tell you if that part of my anatomy struck that bar, man,
there's almost no difference in hitting the bar and hitting the pad.
There's not.
It's just.
It gives me a pain right now.
Right.
They
were more a fashion statement. Look cool because it kind of had that. I had
you
one.
Could get colors.
I had one that was chrome and black checkerboard.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I had a neck pad and then the little crossbar on top of your handlebars because you would come down. Now that would. Because you would come down and your head would donk that crossbar on your handlebars.
Your cranium's a little bit more durable than the other part.
Right.
That hits the other bar.
Right.
I would take a shot to the head 9.9 times out of 10 than I would one to the crotch. I'm just saying.
Fair.
I mean.
Fair. I'm with you.
Just bare knuckle punch me right in the face. That's all good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so landing
ramp. And so we decided as the ramps got bigger, we could cushion it with a landing ramp, which did not have to be anywhere near the size of the takeoff ramp. So there was one time we built by hand. How else do you build things? We built it out of spare lumber that we had, and the ramp itself was probably, I'd say, 2 to 2.5 feet tall. It was not huge, but it was not long, so you got a pretty good launch. Mm-hmm. Some ramps are long, and you just kind of continue and take off. This one was come and kind of very abruptly sent you in the air.
Yep.
So you could get, without exaggerating, you would probably get somewhere between 4 and 5 feet off the ground.
Yeah, height was the goal.
Right, height was the goal.
Yeah, you wanted to get as high as possible because to our minds that translated, then I'm going to go further.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure the math and the science behind that is probably not correct, but
we were not old enough to be in physics.
Yeah, if I can get high, I'm gonna go far.
Right, because I've got the speed.
Yes.
So So we made this landing ramp, and then distance was what you were going for. And so we, jumped the ramp, hit the landing ramp. And then as we would progress, we would move the landing ramp further and further back.
Because there were people that would overshoot it.
Right.
And it's like, okay, well, if we're going past
I can go further. Yes. And then you're like, okay, I only went this fast that time. I can go a little bit faster. Because you didn't go all out all the time. You had to have something in reserve, for the finale.
Yes.
Or whatever. We're about to go in to eat. Well, all right, watch this.
But you're making your best judgment call at that point of, okay, if they're 10 feet apart, I'm going to go this fast. And again, there's not really any science.
No, it's just it's your kid calculation going, I know what that's going to take to get there. I've done this enough. So we kind of went, and I was doing it for a while, and then we got to a point to where I went, I've had enough, and I stopped. There was another kid that lived around the other side of the street, and he didn't live there for that long.
No, was he a little bit older? Or no?
He was just a little bit older.
Yeah.
I think he was Andrew's age.
Okay. And that's usually things like this would progress that way, is you would have somebody a little bit older, a little bit stronger, would be able to go a little bit further.
Yeah.
And
your little kids would give out earlier because they would.
Most and that's again, that's going to little kid math and logic, is like, okay, we've hit my time.
I can't make. I barely made the last one. I can't make this one.
Right. Ramp wise, I'd said this earlier, I was pretty fortunate growing up. I don't recall any ramp related injuries.
You did not have any ramp related injuries.
So all of my injuries came from different poor choices. But when it came to ramps, I was usually pretty good at, I think this is where my line is.
Yeah. I mean, there were just some, like we talked about, you'd come off the pedals and hurt yourself, that kind of thing. But as far as needing actual medical attention.
Yes. No, there was plenty of road rash, but just nothing like what we talked about in the last episode or anything major. So nothing required more than a Band-Aid or just kind of sucking it up, and it had to heal.
Acting like it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So there was this kid, Trey, that lived around the other side. And the kid was fast on the bike. He could do a few little, tricks in the air or whatever. And so as the landing ramp got further and further apart, he would go, I kind of think it like the Red Bull, Daredevils, it's like, oh, they made that one, let's move it. So he would move it. And so they got to a point to where he moved it pretty far. And so he kind of looked at it, and as he's riding up to take
confidence is high.
Right, to take his approach, there were some other kids that I think lived on the street behind us. I did not know these kids. I don't know. I'm assuming they came from the street behind us, and I don't remember seeing them really very often after that. But when Trey went back up the street, they kicked the landing ramp back probably another couple of feet.
Not maliciously. Not trying to cause this, I don't think. Maybe? Okay, maybe a little bit of let's mess with him, because he's been going really good. Okay.
Right. And they had already chickened out.
Yeah.
And so they were kind of like, "Oh yeah, we'll show him."
And there was probably some bragging and some words being shared about this. So, okay.
Like, "Oh, y'all a bunch of sissy," whatever.
Definitely malicious.
Right. So, if I had to just on the spot right now, were they malicious in their intent? I would say 100%.
Guilty as charged.
So,
got it.
They kicked the ramp back a couple of feet. Foot and a half to 2 feet, which is huge when you're talking about gauging how fast you have to go.
Well,
and far.
Especially at this point,
this distance
in the endeavor, is we've been moving it for a period of time already.
I mean, I would say it was probably a good 15 to 18 feet that he's trying to span.
And we're down to one person still making this attempt.
It's just Trey jumping.
This isn't a group of people that are still nailing it. This is basically the champion of the day
Right. Just
know.
showing that he is the ultimate champion and going to make this one.
Just going to set that bar a little
So
higher.
he comes, and there's probably, 8 to 10 of us standing there watching on the side. And I can vividly see this happening. He comes and he hits that jump, and his front tire makes it on the landing ramp, and his back tire does not. His back tire lands right in front of the landing ramp. And he does 2 complete 360s. Wheels over.
This is like X game stuff.
Like X
for a brief moment, it's like
yeah,
this dude is historically creating something.
right. And he was still on the bike as he was flipping, but did not land on the tires. He landed on his back or
His
whatever,
back.
and then sideways, and bike came off, and he was. And he got up, and I'll never forget as long as I live. He stood up, and the first thing he said was, "I need some water."
Because that'll make it better.
So I don't know if he was in shock or whatever, but the rims on his bike were bent. I remember as he rode back around to his side of the street, just kind of as
It was like one of those early, if anybody remembers, during that time, like the ABC Wide World of Sports intro.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like the agony of defeat.
Yeah.
It shows the skier coming down the hill. It had that vibe to it.
oh yeah,
Of just the wobbly bike, the dazed and confused participant, and just it's like, oh my gosh, man, that was just, it was awful to see.
yeah.
Spectacular, but awful.
Yeah, I mean, the flipping over was a sight to behold, but knowing that, and he did no permanent damage, didn't have to go to the ER or anything like that. Like,
No.
he was just, dude, that messes you up. Like, he was just hurt,
It's,
and messed his bike up.
it's like the few times the breath knocked out of you.
Yes.
It takes a few minutes to get your composure
Yeah.
back. Your soul left your body for a minute,
Right.
and then it came back real
Right, it was
fast,
like-
and you're like, what?
Yeah, your soul was kind of like, I'm going to let you do that. It's like, oh, okay,
Just
I'll come
steps
back in.
out, and it's like, that's why you're still alive.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I totally get it. I've experienced that a couple times, and you're just like, let me go think this out somewhere else alone.
Right. And I can remember also getting on my bike and then riding up the tray and basically ratting these kids out because I didn't know who they were. I didn't like them because they came and messed with what we were doing.
Right. Yeah. It's like, well, wait a minute. This is our project here.
And I remember them kids. Wow. Yeah.
Them
I
kids?
have a college degree. I remember those kids kind of getting mad at me like, oh, you went and ratted us out. And I don't know what got into me, but I was like, yeah, what about it? I'm pretty sure that
And we never saw them again.
I'm pretty sure they were bigger than me, and I was not big and bad or anything like
Some
that.
things you just didn't do. I mean,
Right.
it
was just there was a code.
You didn't want to intentionally hurt anybody, and if you did, you kind of told them it was coming,
Right.
or I'm gonna do this and it might hurt,
Right.
something like that. But no, and I mean, we all know there was more than enough injuries to go around on just a general day when there was a ramp involved.
Oh yeah.
You
We're
have
jumping
that
ramp.
one,
Yeah.
and then you have the fantastic ramp that the Mullins had in their backyard.
Oh, because they had that dirt track that their backyard was kind of a pie shape, and so the very back of it, there was a lot more land area back there, and so they made a decent size dirt track.
Yeah,
And we made little
nice
jumps and
circle.
had a little berm where you could kind of turn faster and that kind of thing. But I remember their dad had all these sheets of this white plywood type material. And we would take those and we would stack up, and they were longer. They were probably a good 8 feet. And it was probably sheet of plywood size,
Yeah.
but maybe not as wide. So maybe half a sheet. So
There always seemed to be a lot of extra like lumber
Right.
type things
8x2
in their
yes,
backyard.
yes.
too.
He was kind of like your dad. He always came across somebody that had extra stuff at construction site
Yeah.
that he would just take off. Somebody
And
would
nobody
get him,
threw anything away. They
No.
keep it. I'm going to use this at some point, kind of
Right.
thing.
which all of us have. I have pieces of wood that are
absolutely.
odd cut, and at some point I'm going to find use for that. You see these
may be
videos,
years. It may be-
reels and stuff like that. That's like, oh, I need a piece of wood that's this size, and they're like, I have it, and they go bury, digging for it because it's buried in there. Like, yeah, it is. This fits perfect. So anyway, I remember stacking up 8 tires. Now, these are not tires like they are now where they're wide and that kind of thing. These were your general 80s tires. They were not very wide, but 8 tires nonetheless with one of these white boards. And, I mean, you talk about launch angle. I mean,
It was up there.
you hit it like you slowed down when you hit it because it was so
Yeah.
abrupt.
There wasn't a lot of distance being
no
gained off of that.
that
one,
was
but height.
height. I mean, you were every bit of 8 to 10 feet off the
Yeah.
ground.
And that's what I was saying. I don't think you came too far off. You didn't go too much higher than the ramp because it, like you said, you slowed down as you went up it. But once you launched off of it, I mean, another couple of feet, 10 feet.
Right.
That's a-
You almost
that's a
felt like
drop.
you would get up in the air and just, I know you weren't. Physics will tell you that you're not, but it felt like you were up and you were just kind of paused in the air because as you were traveling forward, the bike wasn't going up anymore. And so you were just kind of, it almost seemed like you were still for like half a second before you just plummeted back to the earth.
And there were a couple people that didn't make it up because they didn't have enough speed going into it.
Right.
And so, there were instances where that would go awry with someone kind of being up near the top of it, and then all of a sudden everything just collapses and it's just a fall back down.
Yeah.
The
Or
actual
got a
ramp
front
phase.
tire off and then just toppled over to the side. And
it is still a 8-foot drop no matter how
Right.
you look at it. I
Right.
mean, you're either going down with a bike or you're going down by yourself.
Right.
But yeah, no, I remember that one too. That was a good one. But
and
man,
jumping that 8-tire ramp, I came down a little bit to my right. And when I hit, my handlebars just turned and like jabbed me in the thigh because I was coming off of the bike, jabbed me in the thigh and like threw me to the ground and the bike landed on top of me. I was on crutches for 2 days because I had jacked up my right leg I was still in elementary school because I can remember going out to our playground area that we had. We had this like blacktop playground area, and I didn't get to play because I was sitting there on crutches, just like, wow, this is awesome. They're playing kickball, and I'm watching.
but you had a cool injury to talk about.
Yeah, well,
Probably something like a bruise or something, maybe like a hard bruise.
I'm sure that I had some kind of like, deep kind of, bone bruise or whatever they call it, at a stinger. I gave myself a stinger basically. But in that same time period,
Yeah.
there were very elaborate ramps and things like that made at the Mullins. We took that tall ramp and then actually made it to where you could ride up it, and then had a board that went across to some other tires
Yeah.
where it was just kind of like an elevated bridge type thing, and then some type of descent
Yeah.
ramp. And that's where this other memory comes into play.
So when it descended, did it descend onto the kind of the back turn as well? Or
No, it was facing Ed's yard.
Okay. So you'd already come off of that.
Right.
And
When
this
you
was
when
like
you
the next-
so the 8-tire ramp, you went around that banked turn
Yeah.
and turned to your right,
Okay.
and then hit that 8-tire ramp facing Ed's yard.
And this injury we're going to talk about, which was to our friend Matt, right?
Matt,
Yep.
yeah.
It happened on the descent.
On the descent.
Something went sideways.
Something
up
came
top.
off. I think the bridge part came off and knocked some other parts
Okay.
off.
And then there were, but it didn't knock the descent part, because I remember, like, his face comes in contact with a board.
Yes.
So I'm thinking that's the descent board.
Yes.
And so I think you're right. I think up top something came loose, fell, but he was close enough to the descent to where
He almost got there.
He almost got there. The bike didn't make it, but he made it. So he went down the descent on his lip, right? Is that
So that's part. The bike did make it with him partially. Now that I'm sitting there walking through kind of what happened, I think that bridge part came off as he was going across, and then his bike kind of stopped on whatever was propping up the descent.
Yeah. So the back tire, most likely.
And so
Kinda hit that,
the
stopped
front
him.
tire didn't make it either,
Okay.
because his handlebars hit him in the throat.
Okay.
That's where we get the rest of this from. His handlebars hit him in the throat, but his momentum, as the bike went down, his momentum kept him going, and he hit that landing ramp descent thing and slid down on his lip.
Yeah. And
And the ambulance was called and all kinds of stuff, and
stitches were needed.
stitches inside and outside. His mouth was sewn or wired shut or something.
Pretty close to shut. I know it was open enough for him to be able to put a
straw. Yes.
So that's how he got his nutrition for a few weeks.
A few weeks, yes. He drank milkshakes, or I don't know, the equivalent of protein shake. Everything had to be
I
blended.
didn't say I don't know if we had the concept of smoothies yet, maybe, but it was it was all being blended. And
He did.
And he did. And so, I mean, and it's like, wow, man, what a traumatic thing for our friend to go through. So, our best way to support everyone getting through that was to
Make him laugh.
see if we can make him laugh and
Bust his stitches on the inside.
That is so mean and wrong.
But the before we get to that, the thing about the handlebars hitting him in the throat, he coughed up something and spit it out, this huge hunk of stuff. And when the ambulance or whatever got there, they were asking everything, and we were like, well, he spit something out over here. They went over and got it. His handlebars hit him in the throat so hard, it dislodged his tonsil, and he spit his tonsil out.
I forgot about that.
Now, you can tell me, you can comment and say, oh, you can't do that. I am telling you, I saw it with my own eyes, and the paramedic said, that's his tonsil.
Wow.
I'll never forget that guy just looking right at it and going, oh, yeah, that's a tonsil.
I totally forgot.
Because we just
about
thought
that.
it was just like, he hawked up,
it's
something, there was a bunch of blood in his
blood or
mouth and
something,
snot and just, out. But no. That dude spit out his tonsil. Okay, now I don't know how hard you have to get hit in the throat to spit your tonsil out, but I would imagine, because, they remove those.
Yeah, surgically. I totally understand.
So the impact of that, so we're not talking, this was not just a casual injury. We're talking, 20, 30 stitches on the inside of his mouth, at least as many on the outside. Face was all scarred up, eyes swollen, close to shut.
I mean, it was not,
and it was just
pleasant to look at. I mean,
no,
it was
maybe on this side. No, I mean, you looked at him and you went, I don't know what you did, man, but I know it hurt.
Yeah.
And
it really hard. I mean, he could talk, but it was through like a little.
It was just a very little. And I can remember sitting in his living room as he was watching TV, doing things, like 3 or 4 of us, trying to make him laugh.
Absolutely.
And he was trying not to. He was like, quit it.
Yes.
I'm busting stitches. Like,
don't make me laugh. Don't
right.
make me laugh.
And, that made us want to do it all the
I
more.
was going to say, wow, what a-holes. We were
No, it was just
loving, but
they would have done it to us.
absolutely.
That's just
No,
that's how we were
that's
friends
true.
back then. You know,
Uh,
you loved your friends and that kind of thing. You didn't really want them to get hurt, but if they did, you were going to make fun of them.
yes, because they shouldn't have gotten hurt.
Because
Oh man, yeah, that was a. Whew. Of all the injuries, that was probably one of the ones that sticks out the most.
yeah,
It's like,
that was by far the worst injury.
you know,
Getting knocked out on the moped skateboard incident from last episode was pretty bad, but this one by far.
that's that 0.01% that I'd rather take a shot to the
Right.
gnarlies instead of the lip slide.
Right.
That's my line. I
Right.
mean, you know,
I never
There you
tried.
go.
I never tried the bridge. I don't think. I think I just looked at it and went, "That's a little too rickety for me."
I feel like I recall doing it at least once. It had and I don't know if it was up long. I feel like after
Oh,
that,
no.
it came down. So I feel like that happened relatively early, as we were figuring it out. But I do recall getting across it. I'm thankful that I didn't have that same experience, but
Yeah.
hate that he did. But yeah, I mean,
but I mean, made full recovery and
full recovery, and,
everything was fine.
I think of all the
I do think that Philip has seen one or both of them, Matt and or Joe, somewhat recently.
very cool.
Philip, you can tell us
Absolutely.
if you feel like it. That'd be great.
But yeah, definitely I would say location-wise and equipment, probably their backyard as far as ramps go was the best spot.
Yeah. Well, because they had that big
yeah.
crust side of the pie.
And they lived right behind them was a church that eventually did some construction, and for probably at least a full summer.
Well, that was kind of right. We got there that way. That church was kind of behind us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, well,
You
Yeah,
jump
it was a
over
big church.
You jump over my fence and
Right.
you're right
Yeah.
there.
and I remember for at least a summer there was construction going on back there of a gymnasium, and especially on the weekends or when construction wasn't happening, you could go back there, grab a shovel, and we had a very nice little dirt track.
Oh,
back
we
there
made
for a
our own
while.
little dirt track. We would just take dirt that they had and kind of pack it down and start jumping on it.
Create
Or
a
it's like
hill here,
yeah,
a little bend there.
gravel there, and
Yeah, no, that worked. That was a really great spot for a while
Yeah.
until they finished,
yeah,
and they cleaned it all up.
yeah.
But then we had a place to play basketball, so
Yeah.
it was all good. But awesome.
But-
What other ramp stories? Any other ramp or bike stories? I know we're getting close to.
Yeah, time.
time here,
I
but-
think that was as far as core memories of ramps. I think
Yeah,
that
it's
was
hard.
about it.
Hard to beat the lip.
Yeah, I think we did a couple things because your driveway was paved at that time, and so
Mhm.
it stuck up, maybe foot
Yeah.
ish, and so we would put a little board and try to jump all the
Yeah.
way across your driveway, which it was wide, but it wasn't like the only hard part was the yard where we play football in. That's where you had to get your speed,
Yeah.
and then you had to land and not go. Not land and hit the oak tree that was over there,
Yes.
or go into the hedges,
So
because the hedges were on that side too,
They were.
in between you and
I mean, you
the
gotta
Lehmans.
you got to have challenges,
right.
to
And
hit
there were
that.
always acorns. It was hard to stop over there.
It was. Look, those acorns, you would slide on
Oh,
those
yeah.
and just almost as well as you did gravel, but not what you were looking for at the time.
No, you were looking
But,
for stopping.
Yeah. So I think as we wrap this up, I came up with a really great question for
You
the book
did?
of
Oh,
answers.
okay.
I think.
All right.
Let's see what you think about it.
All right. We're still on our
Science project.
yep. And these are still going strong. I have a feeling that since these are sealed,
Mm-hmm.
it will take quite some time for these to,
Some really good preservatives in there.
because this just has the little snap-on lid, so I'm sure air is getting in there and doing what it's doing. All right.
Book of answers.
Book of answers.
Here's the question that I propose. If we were to build a ramp today,
Oh, okay.
would we be successful at jumping it? think it's a good question?
I think it's a great question.
You got a good answer?
Good. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Trust your intuition.
What's your intuition?
My intuition would be dependent upon how we built the ramp.
Okay, because my intuition says, dude, don't build a ramp.
Yes.
Because then you'll be forced to
But
jump
see, that
it.
wasn't the question. The question was, if we were to
Yes.
build a ramp,
Would we be successful?
would we be successful?
Would we be able to jump it? Like
Trust your intuition. I think if we built it properly, I would probably build about a foot and a half tall ramp
Okay.
with plenty of runway and
No landing ramp.
no landing ramp.
I would take the ground.
Yeah, just the ground and call it a day.
Okay.
Because my
I could,
my mountain bike that I have
Yeah.
has at least front shocks on it, so that would
as does mine.
that would take the impact.
That would help. Okay. Yeah, intuition is a low ramp.
low. It doesn't have to be this low, but
Yeah.
a ramp of minor substance.
Okay. I think that's a good intuition.
Trust your intuition.
All right.
All right.
That was a good one. I
Yeah.
like that. I hope everyone enjoyed that. Bikes and ramps.
Yep.
Really
If you have any
important
80s
aspect.
ramps stories, tell us in the comments, because
Love it.
I would like to hear something that other people did, because I'm sure we didn't do it all.
No,
somebody
or just
else-
a different perspective of the same thing.
Yeah, somebody else did. Yeah, if you were an onlooker in any of these events.
If you were the kid who moved that ramp on Trey,
Yeah,
let us know.
yeah, because I don't know who you are, and
Maybe he asked you to.
I
and
don't
we
know
just-
anything about you other than at that time, I didn't like you and I didn't know you. So I was going to rat on you. Sorry about it.
I mean, as far as we know, that's what they get.
Right.
So
So
change history.
anyway,
Let us know.
we've asked you guys before if you'd take just 3 seconds and tell us where you are listening from. There's been a few people that have actually done that, and we appreciate it.
Fantastic. Where are they listening from?
My brother's listening from Cookeville.
All right.
My other brother is listening from Arkansas.
All right.
And
So we're
have any of your kids commented?
to
Look,
me. I don't know if they've commented.
no, I need. If you are
Comment.
related to Chris
Comment.
in any way,
Make a note.
just put on there where you're listening from. That's all we're asking.
I do know that they have both listened and watched, as has my granddaughter has watched and thought it was really cool to see Granddad on TV.
Ah, nice.
So she's watched the video. So yeah, that's a win. I believe also so South Carolina, Florida. I know my son's watched a couple as well. So
Okay.
and he's home now, so he can watch.
He needs
again.
to watch while he's out, so he can
So
comment.
we can get international
so he can,
exposure.
yeah, so he can comment some exotic location.
I will. I'll send him that note. I know he gets connection when they're in Cuba, so that's exotic.
Oh, if we had a listener in Cuba or a viewer
There
from
we go.
Cuba, that would be cool.
And if it's illegal, that's even cooler.
Yeah,
I don't think they can restrict that, right? There's no sanctions on radio waves or podcasts. I feel like if you're using
And,
internet and you're on a Navy base,
it's just
It should be
YouTube.
fine.
I mean,
Yeah.
should be fine.
it should be good.
All right,
You're not banning that yet.
appreciate it. Appreciate y'all watching. We will catch you next time. So be looking for us.
See you guys.
Have a good one.